Elena Rodriguez straightened her blue uniform as she walked into the Galactic Council chamber. The massive dome stretched above her, filled with representatives from 47 different worlds. Some looked like giant insects, others were made of living crystal, and a few appeared to be floating clouds of gas. But they all had one thing in common. They barely noticed. When humans entered the room, that was exactly how Elena liked it. She took her seat in Section 23, right between the Mollusk Collective and the Spiral Arm Trading Guild. Not too important, not too weak, just perfectly average. The way humans had been for 50 years. Today, we discuss the mining rights in the Kepler sector, announced Chairman Vextel, whose species look like walking trees with too many eyes. The Zephyrian hegemony claims these worlds by right of discovery. Elena listened as the great powers argued. The Zephyrians had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for 3,000 years. The Krillian Star Empire controlled another third with their massive war fleets. The Nexus Collective, those strange machine beings, owned most of the galaxy's technology. And humanity? They owned 43 worlds and ranked 23rd in military power. Everyone knew that. Elena smiled slightly. If only they knew the truth. During the break, she walked to the communication booth and activated her secure channel. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to General Harrison, head of Earth's Defense Forces. "How are the negotiations going?" Harrison asked. "Same as always. They're arguing over resources while treating us like we're barely worth mentioning." Harrison chuckled. "Good. Any problems with the protocols?" "None. Our ships are staying within normal speed limits. Our weapons are registering at standard power levels. Our colonies are reporting exactly the populations we want them to see." "Excellent. The Veil appreciates your work, Ambassador." Elena nodded. The Veil was a secret organization that most humans didn't even know existed. Their job was simple. Make sure humanity always looked ordinary. Never too strong, never too weak. Just another middle-tier species, trying to make their way in the galaxy. It had worked perfectly for 50 years. After the session ended, Elena returned to her quarters on the diplomatic station. She was reviewing trade agreements when her communicator buzzed with an emergency signal. The transmission came from Kepler 7, one of humanity's mining worlds. The face on the screen belonged to Captain Maria Santos, commander of the local defense force. Behind her, Elena could see smoke and flashing warning lights. "Ambassador, we're under attack. Unknown ships, looks like pirates. Maybe 30 vessels." Elena's heart raced. "How many defense ships do you have?" 3 patrol craft. "We're heavily outnumbered." Elena thought quickly. According to the protocols, human colonies were supposed to have typical defenses. 3 patrol craft against 30 pirates should result in either retreat or heavy casualties. That's what other species would expect. "Captain, remember your training. Maintain all protocols." Captain Santos nodded. "Understood. We'll follow standard engagement procedures." The transmission ended, and Elena immediately contacted the Council's emergency line. She reported the attack using the proper diplomatic language, making sure to sound appropriately worried about an overwhelming pirate force. 3 hours later, her communicator buzzed again. Captain Santos appeared on screen, this time smiling. The smoke was gone, replaced by normal lighting. "Situation resolved, Ambassador. All pirate vessels destroyed or captured." Elena blinked. "Casualties?" 43 wounded, 7 killed. The usual numbers for this type of engagement. Elena frowned. The usual numbers were very specific. The Veil had calculated exactly how many casualties humanity should take in different situations to maintain their cover. Too few losses would make them look too strong. Too many would make them look too weak. "Any problems with the protocols?" Elena asked. "A few close calls. Lieutenant Chang almost used full power on his particle cannon, but I reminded him to stay within parameters. Ensign Rodriguez forgot to limit her engine output during the pursuit phase. Had to have her dial it back. Elena nodded. This was always the challenge. Human technology was so far beyond galactic standards that soldiers had to constantly hold back. Their standard weapons could destroy entire fleets if used at full power. Their patrol craft were more advanced than most species' main battle cruisers. Good work, Captain. File the standard reports. Already done. Our ships performed within expected human norms. The pirates got unlucky and made several tactical errors. We showed appropriate human persistence and teamwork. After the call ended, Elena looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien intelligence services would be analyzing the battle. They would see exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Another typical human victory against superior numbers. Costly but successful, thanks to human stubbornness and good luck. They wouldn't see the real truth. They wouldn't know that Captain Santos had 3 cruisers disguised as patrol craft. They wouldn't realize that those ships' weapons were operating at 12% power. They wouldn't understand that the entire battle had been carefully managed to produce exactly the right result. Elena's communicator buzzed with a message from Krillian intelligence. They were offering condolences for human losses and praise for another, typically heroic human defense. The message was polite and predictable, but Elena noticed something in the wording. A slight formality that hadn't been there before. As if the Krillians were being extra careful with their language. She filed the observation in her daily report to the Veil. Probably nothing important, but they tracked everything. Even small changes in alien behavior could indicate problems with the protocols. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Ambassador, you have 3 more diplomatic meetings tonight." Elena stood and smoothed her uniform again. Time to go back to being a representative of humanity's modest galactic presence. Time to discuss trade agreements that made human goods seem reasonably priced when they actually cost almost nothing to produce. Time to negotiate treaties that gave humanity fair treatment when they could have demanded anything they wanted. As she walked toward the meeting rooms, Elena thought about the real human fleet hidden in deep space. Thousands of ships with weapons that could crack planets. Entire star systems that other species didn't know existed. Industrial capacity that could supply the entire galaxy. All of it carefully hidden behind a wall of fake reports, shell companies, and modest diplomatic smiles. The masquerade had to continue. The galaxy wasn't ready for the truth about humanity. Maybe it never would be. Elena Rodriguez, ambassador of the Terran Federation, walked into her next meeting with the perfect expression of polite concern on her face. Just another human doing their best in a dangerous galaxy. Thaxmer spread his forearms across the holographic display, his scaled fingers manipulating data streams that floated in the air around him. As a senior analyst for Krillian intelligence, he had studied human activities for 15 years. Recently, something had been bothering him about their military reports. The numbers were too perfect. Human casualties always matched their enemy strength in predictable ways. When they faced twice as many enemies, they took twice as many losses. When they fought in difficult terrain, their performance dropped by exactly the expected amount. It was as if they were following a formula. Thaxmer pulled up battle reports from the last 10 years. Humans had fought pirates, rebels, and border disputes with various species. In every case, they won through what their reports called determination and tactical flexibility. But the results were always within a narrow range of outcomes. Real warfare wasn't that consistent. Real battles had surprises, lucky breaks, and disasters. Human conflicts seemed to avoid all of these. His assistant, a younger Krillian named Vextal, entered the analysis chamber. "Sir, you requested the shipping data?" "Yes. Show me human cargo movements in the last year. The hologram shifted to display trade routes. Green lines showed human merchant ships traveling between their worlds. The timing looked normal at first glance, but Thaxmer had learned to look deeper. Computer, calculate travel times based on declared human engine capabilities. Numbers appeared beside each route. Most showed normal travel times, but dozens of entries had problems. Ships arriving days or even weeks ahead of schedule. Cargo deliveries that required faster than possible transportation. Look at this one. Thaxmer pointed to a red line. The merchant ship Peaceful Trader left Earth with medical supplies for their colony on Tau Ceti. According to human technology reports, that journey should take 26 days. How long did it actually take? Vextel asked. 18 days. They claimed they were running their engines a bit hot to get medicine to sick colonists. Vextel's eyes widened. Running engines at higher power was dangerous. Most species could push their technology maybe 10% beyond safe limits for short periods. To cut 8 days from a 26-day journey would require power levels that should melt any known engine system. Sir, that's not possible with their reported technology. Exactly. And it's not the only case. Thaxmer brought up more examples. Human ships consistently arrived ahead of schedule when carrying emergency supplies. Human colonies somehow had enough power generation to run massive shield systems during solar storms, despite reporting only basic infrastructure. Human mining operations extracted materials at rates that required industrial equipment they supposedly didn't own. There's something else, Thaxmer said, pulling up communications intercepts. Listen to this. A human voice filled the chamber. It was Captain Santos from the recent pirate attack. Remember your training. Maintain all protocols. What's unusual about that? Vextel asked. The context. She's facing 30 enemy ships with only 3 patrol craft. She should be focused on survival tactics or calling for backup. Instead, she's telling her people to maintain protocols. What protocols require constant reminding during combat? Vextel thought about it. Protocols for holding back? That's what worries me. Their analysis was interrupted by an emergency alert. A Zephyrian diplomatic vessel had suffered catastrophic engine failure in human space. The ship was stranded with 47 crew members and limited life support. Thaxmer and Vextel monitored the situation through their intelligence network. The nearest human ship was supposedly days away, but within hours, a human cargo vessel called Simple Hauler had arrived at the scene. The Zephyrian captain was obviously grateful. His species and humanity had been allies for decades. The human captain, a woman named Jennifer Clark, was modest about the rescue. We were in the area, she told the Zephyrians. Got your distress call and came as fast as we could. How did you get here so quickly? The Zephyrian captain asked. Our navigation systems showed the closest human ship was at least 4 days away. Captain Clark's voice was casual, almost embarrassed. Well, we were pushing our engines a bit harder than usual. Running hot to make a delivery deadline. Lucky timing, I guess. The Zephyrians were professional explorers. They knew about engines and space travel. Their engineer, a being named Sixren, ran detailed scans of the human cargo ship while it was docked for the rescue. Later that day, Thaxmer received Sixren's analysis. It was disturbing. The human ship was generating energy readings that should have been impossible for a cargo vessel. The power signatures matched those of major military cruisers, not simple haulers. Most shocking of all, the engines were operating at temperatures that should have melted the entire ship dot when Sixren had asked about this. The human engineer had laughed. Oh, that's normal for us. We build things with pretty good safety margins. Safety margins. The phrase stuck in Thaxmer's mind as he compiled his growing file on human anomalies. Over the following weeks, Reports came in from across the galaxy. A Nexus Collective survey team had detected massive energy discharges from a human colony during an asteroid impact. The humans claimed they had basic deflector shields, but the energy readings suggested something much more powerful. Mollusk trading vessel had observed human miners on an airless moon working without environmental suits for several hours. When questioned, the humans said their suits had good recycling systems, but analysis of the atmosphere showed they should have run out of air within 30 minutes. A group of researchers from the Academic Coalition had visited human universities. They were impressed by human computer technology, which seemed decades ahead of what their species reports claimed they possessed. Human scientists casually mentioned research projects that should have required computing power far beyond their supposed capabilities. Thaxmer gathered all this information and presented it to his supervisor, General Krexthal. The old warrior listened carefully as Thaxmer explained the patterns. "You're suggesting that humanity has been lying about their capabilities for 50 years?" General Krexthal asked. "I'm suggesting they've been very careful about what they reveal. Every anomaly can be explained as good engineering or safety margins, or pushing systems a little harder. But when you add them all together, it looks like systematic deception." Yes, sir. General Krexthal was quiet for several minutes. Finally, he spoke. "What do you think they're hiding?" "I don't know. But sir, what if their real capabilities are significantly beyond what we've assumed? What if humans aren't the middle-tier species we think they are?" The general's expression became grim. The Corellian Empire had based 50 years of policy on the assumption that humanity was a useful but limited ally. Their military planning assumed human support would be helpful but not decisive in any major conflict. If humanity was actually much stronger than they appeared, it changed everything. "Continue your investigation," General Krexthal ordered. "But be discreet. If humanity is hiding something, there might be good reasons for it. We don't want to accidentally start a diplomatic crisis." Thaxmer returned to his analysis chamber with new purpose. The evidence was mounting, but he needed more proof. Humanity's secret, whatever it was, had been carefully protected for decades. Uncovering it would require patience and skill. He began reaching out to intelligence contacts from other species. If humanity was deceiving the Corellian Empire, they were probably deceiving everyone else too. It was time to find out just how deep this mystery went. The secret meeting took place on a neutral station in empty space. Representatives from 6 major galactic powers sat around a circular table, each one sworn to absolute secrecy. Thaxmer had spent months arranging this gathering. "Thank you all for coming," he said to the assembled intelligence officers. "I believe we have a mutual problem: humanity." Commander Zixara of the Zephyrian Security Service leaned forward. Her crystalline body reflected the room's lights as she spoke. "Your message mentioned systematic deception. We've noticed some unusual things too." "Such as?" asked Director 077 of the Nexus Collective. The machine being's voice was perfectly emotionless. "Energy readings that don't match their reported technology," Zixara replied. "Ships that arrive faster than should be possible. Industrial capacity that exceeds their declared output by significant margins." Agent Flax Ron from the Mollusk Collective rippled his tentacles in agreement. "Our traders have reported similar observations. Human goods are consistently underpriced, as if their production costs are much lower than they claim." The Insectoid Hive representative, Queen Voice Clickstara, made clicking sounds that translated as concern. "Our scouts have detected massive underground construction on human worlds, far beyond what their population reports would suggest. For 3 hours, they shared intelligence. Every species had noticed anomalies, but none had seen the complete picture. Together, Their observations painted a disturbing image of systematic deception spanning decades. Director, Null 77, processed the data with mechanical precision. Conclusion: humanity has been deliberately concealing their true capabilities. Probability of accidental misrepresentation: less than 0.003%. The question is why, Thaxmer said. And more importantly, what are they really hiding? Agent Flaxron suggested direct surveillance. It was risky. If humans discovered alien spies in their territory, it could cause a diplomatic crisis. But they needed answers. The surveillance operation began 2 weeks later. Using the most advanced stealth technology available, ships from multiple species positioned themselves around human space. They watched. They recorded. They listened. What they found was shocking. Human civilian shipyards were clearly building warships. The vessels were disguised as cargo haulers and mining ships, but their hull configurations and power systems were military grade. Some were larger than the flagship cruisers of major galactic navies. Human mining operations were extracting materials at impossible rates. A single human asteroid mining platform was processing more raw materials than entire Krillian industrial systems. The equipment they were using was centuries beyond anything in the galactic databases. Most disturbing of all were the communication intercepts. Human traffic controllers routinely directed ships to locations that didn't appear on any galactic charts. Supply convoys traveled to coordinates in empty space, suggesting hidden bases or colonies. "Look at this," Zixara said, sharing her latest findings with the group. "We followed a human supply convoy to what our charts show as an empty system. When they arrived, a massive space station decloaked. The energy signature was unlike anything we've ever seen." Thaxmer studied the data. How many humans were on that station? Our long-range sensors detected life signs for at least 10 million beings. 10 million humans in a station that officially doesn't exist, in a system they've never claimed. The implications were staggering. If humanity had hidden colonies and installations throughout their territory, their actual population could be massive. Their real industrial capacity might dwarf that of the galactic superpowers. Director Null 77 had been calculating probabilities. Based on current evidence, estimated human population is between 400 and 800% larger than reported figures. Industrial capacity appears to exceed reported levels by approximately 1,200%. "That's impossible," Queen Voice Clickstar clicked. "No species could hide that much activity. Unless they planned it from the beginning," Thaxmer realized. Unless hiding their true strength has been their policy from the moment they joined the Galactic Council. The group decided they needed a test. Something that would force humanity to reveal more of their capabilities. The opportunity came when astronomers detected a large asteroid heading toward Earth. It wasn't planet-killing, but it would cause significant damage if it impacted. The Galactic Council's normal procedure would be to offer assistance. Advanced species had technology to redirect such threats easily. But this time, the major powers agreed to delay their response. They would watch how humanity handled the crisis on their own. The asteroid was detected 3 days before potential impact. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council were scheduled, but the bureaucratic process was deliberately slowed. Officially, it would take 5 days to organize a proper response mission. Humanity would have to save Earth themselves. The alien observers watched through their hidden sensors as the human response began. Ships launched from Earth and nearby colonies, but not many. Perhaps 24 vessels total. The aliens began to feel guilty. Maybe humanity really couldn't handle this threat alone. Then something strange happened. The human ships didn't try to destroy the asteroid or push it off course. Instead, they positioned themselves around it in a specific pattern. Energy readings began climbing to enormous levels. but somehow remained contained and hidden from normal sensors. Space around the asteroid began to bend. "Gravitational manipulation," whispered Zixara. "They're creating an artificial gravity well." The asteroid slowly changed course, following new gravitational currents that the humans had created from nothing. Within 6 hours, it was heading harmlessly into empty space. The human ships had redirected a massive space rock using technology that no other species possessed. Even more disturbing was how casual the humans seemed about it. Their communications were relaxed, routine, as if redirecting asteroids was normal maintenance work. When the Galactic Council finally organized their rescue mission, they found Earth completely safe. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez thanked them politely for their concern and explained that humanity had used standard gravitational adjustment procedures to handle the problem. Standard procedures for technology that was centuries beyond anything in the galactic databases. Thaxmore knew it was time for direct confrontation. He requested a private meeting with Ambassador Rodriguez under the pretext of discussing trade agreements. She agreed, seeming completely calm. They met in a secure conference room on the diplomatic station. Elena Rodriguez sat across from him with the same pleasant expression she always wore. But now Thaxmore knew it was a mask. "Ambassador," he began carefully, "my government has some concerns about recent events." "Oh? What kind of concerns?" "The asteroid incident. Our scientists are having trouble understanding how your ships accomplish that gravitational manipulation." Elena's smile never wavered. Human engineering tends to be practical. We build things with good safety margins. There was that phrase again. Safety margins. "Ambassador, I'm going to speak plainly. My investigation has revealed significant discrepancies between humanity's reported capabilities and your actual performance." Elena's expression remained perfectly neutral. "I'm not sure what you mean." Thaxmore activated a holographic display. "Travel times that are impossible with your declared engine technology. Energy readings that exceed your reported power generation by several orders of magnitude. Industrial output that suggests a much larger population than you claim to have." Elena studied the data without any sign of surprise or concern. When she spoke, her voice was calm and professional. "Commander Thaxmore, humanity has always been transparent with the Galactic Council about our capabilities. We're a species that believes in efficiency and preparation. Some might call it good planning. Ambassador, the evidence suggests systematic deception spanning decades." Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, there was something different in her voice. Not threatening, but absolutely serious. "Commander, let me ask you a question. In your opinion, what would happen if a species significantly more powerful than the current galactic superpowers suddenly appeared and demanded changes?" Thaxmore thought about it. "There would be fear. Probably conflicts. The balance of power would be disrupted." "Exactly. Fear and conflict. Wars that could destroy civilizations." Elena leaned forward slightly. "Now imagine that this powerful species didn't demand anything. Imagine they just wanted to live peacefully alongside everyone else. What would be the best way to accomplish that?" The implication hit Thaxmore like a physical blow. "You're saying humanity deliberately appears weaker than you actually are to maintain galactic stability." "I'm saying humanity believes in adequate safety margins, Commander. In all things." The phrase, adequate safety margins, suddenly sounded terrifying. The hack had taken months to plan and execute. The combined intelligence services of 6 galactic powers working together represented the most advanced cyber warfare capabilities in known space. Even so, they almost failed. Human computer security was far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. Agent Flaxron had volunteered his ship's quantum processing arrays for the operation. Maul's technology was naturally suited for complex calculations, and his people had experience breaking encryption systems. But even with their best equipment, penetrating human networks required techniques that pushed their technology to its limits. "We're in," announced Flaxrod's lead technician. The words sent a chill through the assembled intelligence officers watching from their hidden base. What they found in the human military databases was beyond their worst fears. Director 077 processed the initial data streams with mechanical efficiency. Files labeled Goldilocks protocols appear to be primary operational documents. "Display them," ordered Thaxmore. The holographic screen filled with human military doctrine that made no sense until they understood what they were looking at. The Goldilocks protocols were instructions for deliberate failure. Human commanders were required to operate at exactly 12% of their actual capabilities. Weapon systems had built-in limiters that prevented full power usage. Ship engines were artificially restricted to speeds that matched galactic norms. Even human soldiers were trained to move and react slower than their enhanced physiology actually allowed. 12%, whispered Zixara. They've been fighting at 12% strength for 50 years. Worse data kept coming. What the galaxy knew as human warships were actually classified as heavily detuned civilian vessels in their real military files. The ships that aliens feared as the backbone of human space defense were basically armed cargo haulers, operating at a fraction of their capacity. Queen Voice. Clickstara made distressed clicking sounds as she studied population reports. Their census data shows Earth alone has 84 billion inhabitants, not 12 billion. Most live in massive underground cities that extend for hundreds of kilometers beneath the surface. Agent Flaxron's tentacles writhed in agitation as he accessed industrial databases. Their manufacturing capacity is... This has to be wrong. According to these files, human industrial output exceeds the combined production of the Krillian Empire, Zephyrian Hegemony, and Nexus Collective together. "It's not wrong," Thaxmer said grimly, reading through territorial claims. They've been secretly colonizing and industrializing star systems for over 200 years. The Terran Federation that we know is just the public face of something called the Human Expansive. The real numbers were staggering. Humanity controlled not 43 star systems, but over 300. Their actual military consisted of battle fleets that individually outmassed the entire combined galactic navy. Their industrial bases could supply the entire galaxy's material needs, using only a fraction of their total capacity. Most terrifying of all were the tactical assessment files. Human military planners had apparently run detailed simulations of conquering the entire galaxy. The longest scenario required 8 weeks. 8 weeks to conquer everything. Director 077 had been running calculations as the data poured in. Probability assessment complete. Based on revealed capabilities, humanity could defeat all current galactic powers simultaneously with 97.3% certainty of victory. They could have taken over the galaxy at any point in the last 50 years. Thaxmer realized they chose not to. Even more disturbing were files labeled Post-Scarcity Civilization, Management and Retirement, Protocols for Conquered Populations. Humanity hadn't just planned for military victory. They had detailed procedures for managing galactic civilization after conquest, plans for providing universal basic living standards, eliminating poverty and conflict, and gradually transitioning other species to human style. Post this scarcity economics. It was conquest disguised as charity. Zixara discovered communication logs that made the situation even worse. Human commanders regularly discussed their frustration with the Goldilocks protocols. Phrases like maintaining the act and pretending to struggle appeared in thousands of military reports. The humans found their own limitations annoying. Look at this. Queen Voice Clickstara shared a training manual she'd found. Human military academies have courses called Galactic Conquest Scenarios and Post-Victory Governance. This isn't theoretical planning. They teach this to their officers. Agent Flaxron had accessed what appeared to be recreational databases. They even have civilian entertainment about conquering the galaxy. Something called strategy games, where humans practice planetary invasions for fun. The intelligence team sat in stunned silence as they processed the implications. Every interaction with humanity for 50 years had been theater. Every diplomatic negotiation had been between people who could have simply taken what they wanted by force. Every trade agreement had been charity disguised as commerce. Humanity hadn't been struggling to find their place in galactic civilization. They had been babysitting it. Thaxmar found a file that made his blood run cold. It was labeled Assessment of Current Galactic Military Threats and dated only 6 months ago. Human intelligence had detailed analyses of every major military force in known space. Their conclusion was brutal in its simplicity. No external threats detected. All known military forces could be neutralized without significant human casualties. Recommend continued operation of Goldilocks protocols to maintain social stability among client populations. Client populations. That's what they called the rest of the galaxy. We need to look at their real military. Director Null 77 stated with mechanical certainty. They found it in files marked for existential threats only. The weapons and technologies described in these documents were terrifying. Humanity had developed warfare capabilities that could destroy planets, manipulate stars, and tear holes in space itself. Their defensive systems could shield entire star systems from attack. But perhaps most disturbing was a note attached to these files, not for use against current galactic populations. These beings are under human protection, whether they know it or not. Protection. Humanity saw themselves as the galaxy's protectors, not its conquerors. Zixara discovered the final piece of the puzzle in a file, marked Threat Assessment and Response Guidelines. It was a list of scenarios that would cause humanity to abandon their peaceful facade and use their full capabilities. The list was short. Extinction-level threats to human colonies. Genocidal attacks on any galactic species. The development of galaxy-destroying weapons by hostile forces. Anyone threatening to disrupt what humans called the peaceful development of galactic civilization. They've been protecting us, Thaxmar said quietly. Every time we thought we were safe from galactic threats, it was because humanity was quietly making sure those threats didn't develop. The aliens spent hours reading through file after file. Human agents embedded in every major government. Human monitoring stations disguised as research facilities, watching for signs of dangerous technology development. Human intervention teams that had quietly prevented 17 potential galactic wars in the last 30 years. The galaxy had been living under human protection for decades without knowing it. Agent Flaxron discovered one final document that changed everything. It was a personal log from a human admiral. Another day of pretending our ships can barely handle pirates while our real fleet could pacify the galaxy in a month. The protocols are necessary, but exhausting. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if we just told everyone the truth. But the sociologists are right. Most species aren't ready to learn they've been living in a human protectorate. Better to let them think they're independent while we quietly keep them safe. The truth was finally clear. Humanity wasn't hiding their strength to avoid conflict. They were hiding it to preserve everyone else's dignity. They were so far ahead of galactic civilization that revealing their true capabilities would destroy the self-respect of every other species. The galaxy hadn't been a collection of independent civilizations. It had been a nature preserve, carefully maintained by humanity for the protection and development of less advanced species. And now 6 intelligence services knew the truth. Thaxmer looked around at his fellow spies. Each represented a proud galactic power that had considered itself humanity's equal or superior. Now they knew they had been pets in a cosmic zoo, protected by beings who found their greatest military achievements mildly amusing. The weight of that knowledge was crushing. "What do we do now?" whispered Zixara. None of them had an answer. How do you return to normal diplomatic relations with beings who have been pretending to be your equals while actually being your guardians? How do you negotiate with someone who could have taken everything but chose to give you the illusion of independence instead? The hack had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. They had learned humanity's secret. Now they had to decide whether the galaxy was ready to handle the truth. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from every major power sat in stunned silence as Thaxmer presented his findings. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, and terrifying. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez sat in her usual seat, maintaining the same calm expression she had worn for 50 years. But now everyone knew what lay behind that diplomatic smile. Chairman Vexthal struggled to maintain order as panic spread through the chamber. Representatives whispered frantically to their aides. Several species had already recalled their military fleets from human borders. Others were demanding immediate defensive alliances. "The evidence presented suggests," Chairman Vexthal said carefully, "that humanity has been less than completely transparent about their capabilities." Elena Rodriguez stood slowly. The chamber fell absolutely silent. Every being present understood they were about to hear from someone whose true power dwarfed their combined civilizations. "Honored delegates," Elena began, her voice as calm as ever, "I want to address the concerns that have been raised about human transparency." General Krexthal of the Krillian Empire interrupted. "Transparency? You've been lying to us for 50 years. Elena turned to look at him directly. "General, let me ask you a question. If you discovered tomorrow that your species was significantly more powerful than every other civilization in the galaxy, what would you do?" "I would." The general paused, realizing the trap. "We would ensure galactic stability." "Exactly. And how would you ensure that stability? By flaunting your superior strength? By demanding tribute? By restructuring galactic governance to reflect your dominance?" The chamber was completely quiet now. Every delegate was following Elena's logic to its inevitable conclusion. "Or," Elena continued, "would you perhaps choose to maintain the existing order while quietly ensuring that no serious threats could develop? Would you allow other species to maintain their pride and independence, while secretly protecting them from dangers they couldn't handle themselves?" Queen Voice Clickstara made agitated clicking sounds. "You've been treating us like children." Elena's expression became genuinely sympathetic. "No, Your Majesty. We've been treating you like valued partners who happen to be at an earlier stage of development. There's no shame in that. Every civilization develops at its own pace." Director 077 processed this statement with mechanical precision. "Clarification required. Are you confirming that humanity views other galactic species as less developed?" "I'm confirming that humanity reached what we call the post-scarcity threshold approximately 200 years ago. Once a civilization achieves that level of technological and social development, certain responsibilities become unavoidable." "What responsibilities?" demanded General Krexthal. Elena looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of each delegate. "The responsibility to protect those who can't protect themselves. The responsibility to prevent conflicts that could destroy civilizations. The responsibility to guide development without stifling independence. Agent Flaxron rippled his tentacles nervously. So the galaxy has been under human management? The galaxy has been under human protection, Elena corrected gently. There's a difference. We've never made decisions for other species. We've simply ensured that you had the freedom to make those decisions without interference from existential threats. Chairman Vexthal struggled to process this information. What kind of threats? Elena activated a holographic display. The chamber filled with images that made several delegates recoil in terror. Massive alien warships from outside the galaxy. Rogue artificial intelligences that could consume entire star systems. Spaceborne life forms that fed on planetary biospheres. In the last 50 years, Elena said calmly, humanity has quietly dealt with 47 extinction-level threats to galactic civilization. Most species never knew these dangers existed because we handled them before they could reach inhabited space. The implications crashed down on the assembled delegates like a physical weight. Every time they had felt secure in their territories. Every time they had focused on internal development instead of military preparation. It was because humanity had been standing guard. Zixar of the Zephyrian Security Service asked the question that everyone was thinking. What happens now that we know? Elena was quiet for several moments, as if considering how to answer. When she spoke, there was something different in her voice. Not threatening, but absolutely certain. That depends on you. Humanity has always preferred that other species develop independently. The Goldilocks protocols exist because we believe galactic civilization is healthiest when every species feels they have agency and purpose. But now we know the truth, General Krexthal said bitterly. We know that our military strength is meaningless. Our territorial claims exist at your sufferance. Our entire civilization depends on your protection. Yes, Elena said simply. But that doesn't have to change anything. The chamber erupted in confused voices. How could nothing change when everything had changed? Elena waited for quiet, then continued. Humanity is prepared to maintain the current protocols indefinitely. We can continue pretending that our ships are no faster than yours, that our weapons are no stronger, that our industrial capacity is limited. Most humans would prefer that, actually. The masquerade has become part of our culture. Queen Voice Click Star clicked rapidly. You would continue the deception? If that's what other species prefer, yes. We understand that learning you've been protected can be psychologically difficult. If you want to pretend this conversation never happened, humanity will respect that choice. The offer hung in the air like a lifeline for drowning swimmers. Several delegates looked tempted by the possibility of returning to ignorance, but Director 077 raised a critical question. Alternative options exist? Elena nodded slowly. Humanity has always hoped that eventually, other species would develop to the point where full disclosure became possible. We could begin sharing our actual technologies. We could discuss the real threats that exist beyond galactic borders. We could work together as true partners instead of guardians and protected populations. What would that partnership look like? Asked Agent Flaxron. Full technological sharing. Joint exploration of the greater universe. Combined efforts to uplift other civilizations to post-scarcity status. Eventually, true galactic unity instead of the careful management we've maintained so far. The chamber was silent as delegates considered their options. Return to ignorance and maintain their pride, or accept junior partnership in a cosmos far more dangerous and wonderful than they had imagined. General Krexthal spoke first. If we chose partnership, would humanity still limit their capabilities during joint operations? No. If we're true partners, we would use our full capabilities to protect mutual interests. And if some species chose to remain unaware, we would continue protecting them as we always have. Not everyone has to make the same choice. Over the following hours, individual delegates began approaching Elena privately. Some wanted to maintain the fiction of human weakness. The psychological comfort of believing in their own independence was too important to abandon. Others, particularly the more scientifically minded species, were fascinated by the possibility of accessing human technology. The Nexus Collective immediately requested full technological exchange. The academic coalition wanted to study human development patterns. A few aggressive species demanded to know what would happen if they attempted to test human strength directly. Elena's answer was polite but chilling. Any action that threatens galactic stability would be prevented with exactly the amount of force necessary. No more, no less. When asked what exactly the amount of force necessary meant, Elena smiled. We've had 200 years to practice precise intervention. We've become very good at it. As the session ended, the galaxy found itself divided into 3 groups. Those who wanted to pretend nothing had changed. Those who sought partnership with humanity's true civilization. And a small number who quietly began planning to challenge human dominance. Unaware that their plans were already known and countermeasures prepared, Elena Rodriguez returned to her quarters and activated her secure communicator. General Harrison appeared on the screen, looking tired. How did they take it? He asked. About as well as expected. Some denial, some acceptance, a few who want to test our resolve. Any immediate threats? Nothing we can't handle quietly. The Veil's projections were accurate. Most species would rather maintain dignified ignorance than acknowledge dependence. Harrison nodded. And the partnership offers? 17 species have requested full disclosure meetings. The Nexus Collective wants to begin immediate technological integration. It's going to be a busy few years. After ending the call, Elena looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity's real fleets continued their eternal watch, monitoring, protecting, guarding against threats that most galactic civilizations couldn't even comprehend. The masquerade had been partially abandoned, but the mission continued. Humanity would keep watching over galactic civilization, whether that civilization wanted protection or not. Whether it knew about that protection or preferred to remain ignorant, because that's what post-scarcity species did.